Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. Today, I'm really excited for a special guest. You've met his wife before, Kelly Botta, who is the owner of Smarty Pants Medicine, my care provider. I have her husband here today, Dr. Jeff Botta, and we are going to be talking about kind of the overlap between what he does in preventive physical therapy and in medicine, and how we can proactively do some things for our teams when it comes to leadership to prevent challenges down the road. So today's episode is the Preventive Advantage, how great leaders care before it counts. Thank you for being here today, Dr. Botta.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming in. Do you mind sharing a little bit with the listeners about your background and kind of what even brought you here today?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is an honor to be here, so thank you for that. But my name is Jeff Botta. I am a doctor of physical therapy. I attended Shenandoah University for physical therapy school, graduated in 2010. So I've been practicing PT for about 15 years now, and have been in various leadership roles along the way. Oversaw a clinic for a period of time, and started to kind of transition into a little bit more of the what we call like industrial rehab, working with a lot of injured workers and stuff over the past several years, and just had a new recent opportunity to hop onto a new employer and come on as the director of industrial services there. So that's my current role, and I'm passionate about working with injured workers and helping folks in the preventative world too, from hopefully avoiding some of those injuries.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So when I was thinking about the topic for today, I had to admit it brought a memory back for me. I've had physical therapy a couple times in life, but specifically back in the day when I was a teacher, you know, all the teachers go back to school a couple weeks early, maybe even a month early to set up their classrooms. Mm-hmm. And I was decorating my classroom, and I decided like I needed to get up higher to hang something. So I stood on a bookshelf, and apparently you're not supposed to stand on those.
Oh no.
It didn't fall. It just collapsed completely. So it literally split my foot and broke it on the spot. And my employer was not happy with me. They instituted a rule that you have to use ladders and call maintenance men if you want to get up.
Sierra rule. Take it, yes.
Yeah, you always know when there's a rule, someone did something to cause it, right? So it was bringing back that memory of like getting workers' comp and that stigma that goes with workers' comp. Yes. So I definitely want to talk about that with you today. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm very curious. When was the first time you saw yourself as a leader?
Yeah, so for me, I think it was really back in high school. My dad got his doctorate in education from Regent University, and he did his dissertation on character and coaching. So I come from like a very sports-oriented family. Yeah. My dad was a coach. Several of my brothers coach. And basically one of the highlights of his dissertation was he got to interview John Wooden.
Oh, wow.
Who, if people out there don't know who that is, he was a legendary basketball coach for UCLA Bruins, won many national championships, and just an incredible leader. So many quotable things from him. And I was in high school and I was playing basketball at the time. And it was in between my sophomore and junior years that summer. And I had heard this story about John Wooden that he would literally go before basketball practices and sweep the floor for his players. Like legendary coach, high-level guy, you know, so well-known. And he's out there sweeping the floors. Yeah. And that hit me so hard. So in between that summer, I said, okay, I'm gonna do the little stuff because I so badly wanted to be a captain on the basketball team. Okay. So I took it to heart to say, you know what, I'm gonna show up here every single day. I'm gonna sweep the floor. I'm gonna get the gym ready. I'm gonna be a servant leader for those around me to show my teammates this is what it's gonna take to be a successful season. And sure enough, my coach recognized that, and I was able to be a captain.
Oh, wow.
But stepping into that role, and I think just kind of owning that a little bit for the first time and relating to that was really the first time I said, okay, that this is a leadership role and opportunity for me.
Yeah, what a great memory. I love that. And I always see quotes from him all the time everywhere.
So
Such
many
great
good ones.
quotes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, specifically what you're doing today, what led you to specialize on the industrial side, which I had
Yeah.
never really considered before. I was just like kind of PT's PT, and I've
Sure.
never really thought about preventive. Do you say preventive or preventative? Because they're both words.
I guess preventative is
Okay.
what I lean towards.
Okay.
Yeah.
For preventative, that side of it, I always think you have an injury, you go to PT and you recover from it. So I'm anxious to hear more about it. But leading up to kind of finding that specialization, what led you there?
Sure. So yeah, I guess I kind of think about it in two categories. There is the preventative side, and then there is the rehabilitative side, obviously after an injury. So yeah, if I'm honest, what motivated me is I was kind of getting a little bit tired in PT, kind of feeling like I was doing the same stuff over and over, and just kind of getting in a rut.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the clinic that I was managing was kind of trending in not the best direction in terms of, being profitable and things of that nature. So I said, like, I got to find something different here. I got to find something for me. I got to find something to help our clinic kind of go to another level.
Yeah.
So I kind of dove into it a little bit and kind of sought out, like, okay, what is something different? What is a niche that I can carve out that nobody else is doing to hopefully help give our clinic a boost? And I found industrial rehab. I had done a clinical rotation way back when in my schooling that had touched on it a little bit. And I liked it at the time, but was like, oh, I'm like the orthopedic guy. I want to work with sports people and that type of stuff. But when I started to go down this path and really like dive into it deeper, I really found that it was very similar to working with athletes. So we use this term called the industrial athlete. So thinking about it in the same way that you would work to get a soccer player back on the field, it's the same thing with an injured worker, right? Like time away from their job, they're losing compensation, et cetera, et cetera. We need to get them back to work as quickly as we can so that they can get back to their livelihood. Whereas same thing, like the soccer player, you want to get back on the field as quick as they can so they can play in the game. So that really just struck me. And I said, this is very similar to athletics. So as I went down that path, it kind of scratched the itch of a couple things.
Yeah.
It said, this is interesting. I like this. This is different. And it, allowed our clinic to be a little bit more profitable on that sense with some of the financial pieces of it too. So.
You light up when you talk about it too. So I think it's a good fit.
It's fun. And like you said, I mean, it often does get that stigma, which was honestly my concern at first of like, what am I getting myself into? But as I've learned more about it and I've really got to know the people side of it, not everybody is out there to fake it. Right?
Yes.
Like, I think that's the big thing
It
that gets
is.
misinterpreted a lot of times. Like, most of these people truly want to get back to work. So just, I mean, there's cases where, yes, maybe some folks don't.
But you
the
can
majority
usually
of
see
people,
right through that.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious when that's happening.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there have been issues with that employee leading up to.
Correct. Yeah. There are the signs that come with that. But that's, I think, what has struck me is like trying to kind of squash that rhetoric of like, hey, that's everybody's faking it that's in work comp. That's just not true.
Yeah.
Like, most people really want to get back to work.
Yeah,
So.
that makes sense. So why do you think that the preventative side has always been so overlooked?
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's just kind of another line item on the spreadsheet of like, I don't know if we want to invest the resources to go into this if we don't know that there's, proven value behind it, right? But I mean, I would argue for sure, like one workers' comp claim can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. So if we go through preventative screening. So, for example, we do these things called post-offer employment tests.
Okay.
So we would go into, let's just call it a warehouse or something, and we would do a job evaluation. So we would look at the job, we would assess, okay, how much weight, how much load, how far do they have to lift and carry objects, things like that, and really get a good understanding of what the job is. And then we could design a test to test the potential employee's ability to do these things.
Okay.
So essentially what we're trying to do is prevent an injury before it happens. So if they're not able to safely perform some of these tasks in this test, then maybe it's not a good idea for the employee or the employer to bring this person on board.
Yeah.
So, it just preventing even just one claim can be immensely beneficial for the employer.
Well, that makes so much sense because I work with a lot of clients who, as a part of the candidate screening process, we do like a project-based assessment of the types of tasks they would perform, and here's like a sample of it and show us what you can do. It doesn't sound that different. It's just a physical capacity.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense. Can you share an example of a time that this has had a real impact for a business that you're working with?
Yeah, 100%. So, one thing that we build into these tests is we always do like a little musculoskeletal screening.
Okay.
Prior to, or we assess heart rate, we assess blood pressure, and we kind of check general range of motion. So, how high can you raise your shoulders, or how, far can you lift your legs? What's your gross strength look like? And we just try to identify, are there any, glaring abnormalities in there that could potentially inhibit this person from performing successfully on the test. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, one guy came in one day, and the first thing we did was we took his blood pressure, and his blood pressure was 200 over 120, which is really not good.
Yeah, that's not great.
That's quite unsafe, actually. Yeah. And the craziest thing, this guy was not symptomatic. He's like, I feel fine. I don't have any symptoms. I feel totally normal. He's like, I really want to do the test. And I'm like, sir, I'm sorry, I cannot let you do this test. This is terribly unsafe. We have criteria that if you're above a certain threshold, that we just cannot allow you to do it.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing was referring this gentleman to his doctor. He actually didn't have a doctor, so we went through a couple steps to help get him in to see a physician. This guy comes back to me, it was probably almost a year later, still applying for the same job. And he's like, I got to thank you because you very well may have saved my life. It turns out he ended up having a surgery to repair this heart valve issue that he had all this time that was spiking his blood pressure. And just wild that
Wow.
happened. So, I mean, that's kind of an extreme case right there for sure. And generally in our world, we're not the ones diagnosing high blood pressure or anything like that. But that was just an unsafe scenario that we needed to get him somewhere. So obviously, if we would have put that guy into a job, a physical nature job, we were putting him at massive risk for a big issue, heart attack, whatever it might be. So, that's doing a disservice to the employee, to the employer, if we're not catching something like that. So again, just the power of like a simple screen, what it can do for somebody.
So I'm thinking as you're saying that if someone screens and it appears that maybe it's not a good fit at the time, do you guys recommend like actual training, fitness? Do you support with getting them to a place if they're really passionate about this thing and that's what they want to do? Do you support them in getting to that point? Yeah,
it's a great question. So a lot of times too with employers, they have different jobs like within their, call it warehouse. So some of them are a little bit more physical nature that you might have to lift heavier objects. Some are maybe a little lighter where it's material handling, but instead of, having to lift 70 pounds, maybe you only have to lift like 15 or 20 pounds.
Right.
So sometimes folks can qualify, maybe not for the highest tiered one, but for like a slightly lower tiered job in terms of like weights and such. So it's kind of like, you know, they don't necessarily always fit the thing like that they're applying for, but we might be able to plug them in somewhere else.
Okay.
And that's where like the power of having like a job description, or where we could go on site and look at the job and analyze it and understand it, that we could say, okay, well, this person maybe doesn't fit here, but they do fit here. But yes, if we are, you know, having to not pass somebody in one of these tests, we're certainly recommending like, hey, this is why, and this is what, you know, we would recommend that you do in order to be able to successfully pass this test and get this job.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was laughing in my head when you said have a job description. It blows my mind the number of places I go into and they don't have a job description for any of their employees.
Right.
So this is public service announcement.
Yes.
Please have
great
job
idea
descriptions.
to do.
It's good for the employee to actually understand what they're expected to do.
100%.
And two, like I can see how important it is for you to be able to help place people properly. So
It is. And even on like the workers' comp side of things too, it is pivotal to have that, because that's what a lot of things are based around, or like what are the physical you know, abilities required of this job, and do they match with what this person is currently able to do or not.
yeah.
Sometimes that helps even physicians say, hey, this person's appropriate for like a light duty, but maybe not their full duty job. And we can kind of test that stuff and make appropriate recommendations. So, but knowing what they have to do versus just, you know, sometimes patients will say, oh yeah, I have to lift 250 pounds by myself at work. And I'm like, I doubt that's true, you know? So when it's laid out like that, it's much more helpful. Yeah.
My mind is jumping around because I was literally thinking about my packages being delivered to the office today. The desk is 137 pounds. And I was like, is the FedEx guy bringing that himself, or are they team lifting this stuff up to my office today? It's been on my mind all day. You need to work with FedEx.
Yes. Oh, 100. Yeah. FedEx.
Referrals for you, by the way. I've been thinking about it.
Hopefully that was a team lift.
Yes.
Let's pray that was what happened there. Maybe not, but hopefully so.
Well, thinking about connecting this to leadership in general, to the preventative side, I was just in a presentation the other day, and the gentleman was speaking about bringing play into the workplace and trying to, rather than wait until people are burnt out and aren't thriving, what can we do on the front end and make work fun again, right?
Sure.
And bring people joy and spot the burnout that's occurring and actually support them with that challenge rather than just pushing more work. What are some of the other things that you think leaders can be doing to kind of spot some issues before they come to the surface?
Yeah, no, love it. Yeah, in our world, a lot of it is like, so we talked about the tests and things, but ergonomics is a huge piece of like what we do in PT in general. So in ergonomics, kind of talking about like the setup of your workplace, and this can apply from everything from, you know, a desk worker and how you position your mouse or your keyboard, or like posture based stuff, all the way to like what is your workstation set up like in the factory where you're having to lift material handling stuff all day.
Okay.
So kind of assessing that and just saying like, hey, are we optimizing this? Is this the best like mechanically set up are patients set up to be mechanically sound when they're doing this, or are we putting them in really compromising positions?
Yeah.
So that's, you know, one piece of it that we could kind of look at and say, hey, can we improve on this? And to me, like, employers that choose to do those type of things, that shows a lot, because that's valuing your employee. You're valuing them enough to say, this is important, and I'm trying to do everything I can to mitigate your risk of getting injured. So this is kind of like helping you as much as it's helping
sweeping
me.
the floor before the team plays, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing.
Exactly right. Yeah. So ergonomics is big. We're big advocates for what we call like pre-shift stretching programs.
Okay.
Excuse me. So like, again, a lot of this stuff, I kind of use examples of like factory-based workers, because these are the heavier jobs and more of the folks that are getting injured. But like taking 5 or 10 minutes, and many places do this, and doing like a good custom designed stretch program before they go into that shift. So we're warming you up properly. You're getting your muscles loose. We're kind of activating things before you go and use them. So like in the middle of winter when it's 4 degrees outside and you walk into work and all of a sudden you just walk in and you're picking up something heavy and you're stiff as a board, that's going to increase your risk of potential injury there. Yeah. So just again, taking the time, like, hey, we're going to pay you for this time in your shift to go and do this because we care about you enough that we don't want you to get injured. Yeah. So, I think it says so much about employers that kind of, take the time or allow those type of things to happen in their places of work.
I'm trying to envision, like, boots on the ground, what this looks like. So you say you go into an organization, you kind of see what the pain points might be, and then you would kind of put together a stretch plan for them, and maybe you come in and model it a few times and teach them how to do it, and then, like, slow release of responsibility. Help me understand.
Yeah. So, right, it can kind of be customized based on what the want or need is. But how I like doing it is I go in, again, kind of assess the job. I mean, that's the number one thing for me is I have to understand what these people do on a daily basis, like start to finish, to really be able to give you value. But for a stretch program, it would be kind of customized to what the job is. So we would go in and say, okay, we know that this person has to, be able to pick up 50 pounds from the floor and stack it at a waist level high on a frequent basis. So meaning that's up to like 2/3 of their workday, they're doing this task.
Okay.
So a great warm up there would be, okay, we're going to have you squat 15, 20, 30 times just to get your muscles loose and in that motion to be able to replicate that for multiple times. Yeah. So yes, it's very much customized to the job, but it would be go in, analyze what they do, and then build you a stretch program or potentially build you a test, or even like let's assess your workstation to see how we could optimize it. So every scenario is a little different, so it's not as much like a cookie cutter, like here's your package kind of thing. It's more just like you said, what are the pain points? Like, is there a certain job that more folks are getting injured in that we need to look at a little bit harder and identify why is this happening, or how can we modify this? That's maybe some of the ergonomics piece. But that would, I guess, be the boots on the ground kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, so through my insurance company, they had sent me a ton of like mailings about PT because they had known I was going to a physical therapist at one point, but they were talking about being able to send me like a tablet for PT.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know about all this. I don't know how this works. Yeah. This is weird. And I was having a conversation with Jay yesterday when I was recording about AI and like never replacing the human element, right? Well, I received this tablet in the mail, and number one, I was super uncomfortable because it's recording me as I'm supposed to be doing the moves with this person. It's like a pre-recorded thing, but it supposedly doesn't see anything in the background and just tracks, like it has a series of dots that tracks all like my body parts. So anyway, I can't help but think, because I have not been like accountable to myself of doing all my exercises because there's no human associated with it. Yeah. Like the importance of accountability. You put this program together. People are supposed to be stretching. Like, how can we hold them accountable and make sure they're putting the things that you're teaching them into practice and it doesn't fall off as soon as you walk away?
Sure. Yeah. No. And I mean, ultimately, like, we do training for the managers, and this is like things that you would want to look out for that are happening, or here's this, glaringly horrible lift technique that this person's doing that's going to significantly increase their risk of injury. So there's some training, I think, from the management level of what to look for. Yeah. But then there is an element too where now there's more services being offered to where there is an employee or like somebody like myself or somebody from our organization going on site like once a week or whatever it might be, and just kind of keeping some eyes on it. So are you doing the stretching program? B, are you doing it correctly? And then, as you go throughout the day, like even being able to hop in and critique and say, hey, John, that's, probably not the best way to do that. Why don't you try it like this? So having a touch point there to where we're consistently putting eyes on this, but also putting some of the onus on the management who is there all day, every day watching this stuff and giving them some kind of training of stuff to like bigger picture stuff to look out for.
Okay, that makes sense. So switching for a moment from the preventative side to, okay, now we have an injured worker. Does your organization still support on that side too, not just the preventative side?
Yeah, so that's actually primarily what I'm doing now on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
My passion is the preventative, I will say, because that, like, to me, it's just, I've always preached this spiel of like, we should be no different than you seeing your primary care doctor once or twice a year for just checkups, right? Like, you should get your musculoskeletal checkup a couple times a year. And we should do some of these basic screening things to say, like, hey, if you're losing range of motion in your left shoulder where your right one can go all the way up, is that telling us something that maybe we can nip in the bud now before it becomes an issue? So, that's my soapbox, I guess you would say, on the preventative.
I'm sure you and Kelly have fun talking about all the preventative stuff.
We have great dinner conversations all the time, and we're such nerds. This is what we talk about. But no, from the rehabilitative side, that is a lot of what we do on the day-to-day. Just working with injured workers. And again, trying to optimize the process for them, optimize the treatment, make it strictly focused on getting them back to work. With any PT patient, obviously you have goals and you have things that you want to return to. So in workers' comp, it's sort of built in. Like, we certainly there's nothing wrong with a injured worker having other goals of like, this is what I want to be able to do at home or whatever it might be. But our primary goal is to get them back to work as quickly and as safely as possible.
Okay.
And that's what we try to do by getting them in quickly after the injury, by testing them, routinely to see what their level is at, to seeing if they're safe to potentially go back to maybe a light duty job instead of being completely off of work. Because those things too, physicians don't always get to see these folks on like a day-to-day basis. Like most of these folks, we work with them like 3 times a week that we're bringing them in to see them for PT.
Wow.
And then they're checking back in with their specialist or whatever it might be, maybe once every month or 6 weeks or something like that. So we are really the ones that have eyes on these guys day to day and can hopefully make appropriate recommendations of like, this person's ready or this person's not, and they're just not quite there yet. And we have really cool software that helps us sort of do that, and lots of kind of formal testing procedures and things of that nature.
So that's you guys supporting the actual injured worker, but what do you wish that employers knew and understood about how to best support an injured worker? What is that missing piece?
Yeah. So I hear this all the time from injured workers, is that they feel like they're going this all on their own, right? So when a claim happens, it's often, most organizations kind of pass it off to their insurance carrier, and it's kind of governed by what's called like a TPA, like a third-party administrator, or sometimes a network based on how their plan is set up. So the TPA is who kind of handles all of the claim, meaning like they're the ones that are giving authorization for treatments or not, or those kind of things. So sadly, a lot of times these things take a super long time to happen. Whereas like, you would go see the doctor and they would order imaging relatively quickly and you would get scheduled and that would happen. Sometimes in workers' comp that gets delayed because when that order goes in, it has to go through the third-party administrator and they have to give approval or authorization, which can take weeks sometimes. So these patients unfortunately are kind of sitting in limbo, just waiting,
Getting no
particularly
treatment.
getting no treatment. Like nothing's happening while, they're deteriorating in whatever their injury is. They're getting weaker, they're losing range of motion. When, all the research data shows that if we get them in soon and quickly, our outcomes are so much better. So it's a frustration point for the patient because they just feel like, they're helpless and they can't do anything. And oftentimes, I don't think they feel supported by their employer because this other company is handling it. So I always encourage people, and granted, there's scenarios where there's, legal stuff involved and that kind of thing where employers just, they can't talk to the employee. It's just not allowed with what's going on. But when it is, I think there's so much value in just calling that patient up and saying, hey, how you doing? Or the manager at work, hey, how you doing? I can't tell you how many times it's like, I haven't talked to anybody from work since I got injured. And these people just feel like they're on an island and like nobody cares. Doesn't matter what happens to them. Just they feel so isolated. So, and granted, size of organizations and things like that, that's hard to do. But the people that are successful and the most successful are the ones where you can tell their employees or employers are calling them routinely or sending them a text or saying like, hey, how's it going? How you feeling? You doing okay? What's your status? And asking even us to like say, where's this person at in the rehab? Are they able to come back or that kind of thing? So the more engaged I think they are with that person, it shows the employee that, hey, they care, they're valued, and we're here for you versus like, oh, good luck. Yeah.
But also knowing that it's authentic care for them, not that they're trying to rush the process just to get more work out of them. You know what I mean? Yes. Because there's that too. And I feel like that has happened to me before. Like, where are we in this? Because we need you back.
Yes.
Like, not where are we in this because I care about you and I don't want you to be in pain or... You know what I'm saying? There's a big difference between the two. And I feel like, again, you can see when people are being authentic.
It's a great point. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, if it's that sole purpose of we got to get you back right now because we're losing money with you not being here, they feel that. They know that, which if you just feel like a number, versus like, hey, my manager's really cool and he actually wants me back because he likes me. Yeah. And he values what I can do.
It seems so simple, but
I know. But
I guess it's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about them in their injured state. Well, what about that return to work process? Now, maybe they're back, but they're not back at 100% capacity.
Yeah.
How can we make sure that those employees feel empowered to do their job and don't still feel isolated? I think of, for example, Matthew, I know, had an injury in the fire department. And when he went back to work, he was sitting behind a desk and he could only do admin work. And I could imagine that being so isolating, going from, fighting fires and being in it all the time to sitting and doing clerical stuff and maybe not feeling a part of anything. So what should that part look like?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we try really hard in our programs to safely ramp people up in a way that like we do a ton of work replication type of stuff. So in the clinic, we even do these programs, we call it like work conditioning, or in our world, we call it advanced work rehab, to where if you're doing better, but you're not all the way there where you're ready to go back full duty to being a firefighter, we would essentially create a program for you in the clinic where you would come for 3 or 4 hours every single day of the week, more like work. So we're having you climb ladders, we're having you crawl across the floor, we're having you lift things, drag things, similar things that you would do in your work day.
Yeah.
On a scaled down level to where you are there versus like just jump back into your full duty job. It ramps them back up very strategically as like a way that hopefully prevents future injury. I find that people love that and they feel empowered by that because they recognize like, okay, I'm not back yet. I'm still doing my desk job, but I'm not far because I'm doing my job in a controlled way on a slightly lower level, and I know I'm building my way back up to this versus like I'm just doing my band exercises the entire time I'm there, which is nothing wrong with that. Like, that's good too, and we got to get you stronger, and there's an element to that. But I really find that injured workers light up when they say, oh wow, yeah, that's actually pretty much what I do at work in a similar way. And then recognizing like, hey, how's that feel? Does that hurt your knee still? Or does that feel okay? Oh, well, it hurts a little bit. Okay. Well, let's work through that some. We're safe to do that, but we're not going to go, all the way. So hopefully that makes sense.
It does, but you can catch it in the moment as you're almost training and practicing with them, rather than them going too far too fast. They're back and they're re-injuring. Correct. They're feeling that little pain for the first time in the workplace instead of with you.
Yes.
Under your care.
Yeah, too many times I think we do send people back too quick when they're not ready. Some people are almost overly anxious to get back. Like, I gotta get back yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, you just had a rotator cuff repair 6 weeks ago and just got out of the sling. I don't really want you pressing 100-pound objects over your head. That's not a great idea. So some folks, you got to kind of put the reins on them, and some you got to give that little bit of a boost. But that's really, I think people enjoy and appreciate that when we're kind of, doing more work replication type things, because it makes them feel like they're not as far away, especially if they aren't as far away.
So obviously, supporting folks with their wellness is very important to you. When you think of the organizations that you work with, we already know they like investing in their people and supporting their wellness. But like, when you think of leadership and maybe a tip of what they can be doing to really focus on the wellness piece of their teammates, what should they be doing beyond just physical therapy? What does that look like in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's just dedicating yourself to being consistent to something, like giving opportunities for your employees to like carve out that space for them. Like, hey, can we create an opportunity for you to go and exercise during your workday for 30 minutes? Can we design, a walking team or a club that goes out at lunch and does this? Can we give some type of incentive towards, a gym membership or something like that. I think little things that aren't necessarily massive financial burdens are huge for people, because again, they say like, oh wow, well, if I go and you can create it a million different ways, but if I go and I show that I worked out or did this, they're gonna give me $8 extra on my pay, like whatever. It doesn't have to be this massive financial burden on the employer to do little things like that, to again, empower these people to take control of their health and their wellness and help with that. Yeah.
I had a client that had a desk job, and she actually expressed to me that her entire team, they sit behind computers all day. So they're doing finances. They're looking at spreadsheets all day. And she said, nobody talks to one another. We basically sit in our offices with the lights out, stare at a screen, and she's like, we're gaining weight, like we're not happy.
Sure.
And everybody's kind of in this rut, and she was the only one that saw the impact it was having, and she wasn't sure how to approach leadership and say, we have to do something about this, because one, people are going to end up leaving. We're not going to have anybody left, and two, we're just letting our health go downhill. So it was great to see someone take that initiative. But there isn't that person in every team, and it can be happening. Yeah. I know I try to be aware of how much I'm behind the computer screen, and it's a lot. And I thought that I was making a good choice by getting like a standing desk, because that was like, recommended for so long. The one that's coming today it's an electric version of the standing desk, which I think is cool. But I'm curious about that. Little changes like that. Does that really make a difference?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you change your day from sitting for multiple, like call it 3-4 hours in a day before you even get up, versus, okay, I'm going to sit for an hour, I'm going to stand for an hour. I'm going to sit for 15, 20, 30 minutes, I'm going to stand for that much.
Yeah.
tremendous difference, because the amount of the force and stress that's inevitably, as we sink deeper and deeper into our posture, right?
Yeah.
Like on the computer, like we all do. Nobody has perfect posture all day long. It's just not going to happen. But changing positions, getting up and moving, even if it's like, we always tell our folks, especially post-operative folks, like, we want you to get up 5 minutes out of every hour and move. Like, do not stay glued to that chair or that recliner or whatever. Same principle, right? The more you can change position. So, I wouldn't say you have to stand for 8 straight hours, that's necessarily going to be beneficial. But the varying of positions, tremendously valuable. And again, like that's sort of the whole ergonomic side. So if you're having, neck pain or low back pain, first thing I'd ask is like, okay, well, if you sit all day, how's your monitor positioned? Are you looking down like this? Are you looking up too high? How's your keyboard? Are you having to reach for it? Is it here? Do you have armrests? Like, these are all things that matter when it comes to like injury prevention, or not getting carpal tunnel, that sort of thing, right? So, yes, I would say it definitely matters.
I tried to tell myself that if I'm on a call with a client, have it in the standing position, because I feel like I'm more alert then. And so I feel like I'm more enthusiastic and mindful during the call.
Yeah.
And then when I'm doing admin stuff, that I'm like, I'll just sit down. So that's kind of my strategy to mix it up. But that just means I can't schedule too many client calls, because then I'll be standing all day.
Got to balance that out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Your stand versus sit. Yeah.
Everybody likes to know what doctors do behind the scenes. Like, okay, so you're recommending all these things, but what do you actually do? What are some of the things that you do for yourself to prevent injury, make sure you're being mindful of kind of your own work, office work, whatever it may be?
Yeah, no, I love that question. Yeah, I'll tell you. So I'm creeping up on 40, right? I'm turning 40 this year. Oh my gosh, here it comes, right?
Crazy.
Yeah, tell me about it. But no, like it's crazy to me just how you start to feel things. Like, even in your people will probably be like, you don't even know, buddy. Wait till you get to 60 or 70, right? But just stuff hurts that didn't hurt before, and I notice things that I didn't notice before, or I can't just go out and run 5 miles. That's a problem for me now. It's not as easy. So I mean, for me, I've really tried to be intentional, especially over this last year, of like actually taking time to do what I preach to people, right? Taking time to stretch. I've been a horrible stretcher, admittedly, my whole life. And I am not the most flexible person. But, okay, my back's starting to hurt. So I need to do that if I don't want my back to hurt. And just throughout the workday, just postures and positions are huge. Like, I'm up on my feet a lot during my day. I don't sit a ton. So that part of it isn't as difficult for me as just being glued to the desk.
Okay.
But when I'm upright, what is my posture and position? Am I always leaning towards one side, or am I upright? Am I slouching down on something, or am I standing up tall? Am I engaging my core throughout my day? So I think for me, I've really started to more take to heart of like, I need to take care of my body and myself if I want to continue to do this career for days on end, years on end.
Yeah. I hope you have more than days left in
yeah,
your career.
I do too. That hopefully. Yeah.
You've got it in you. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I was thinking about all of it while you said it. Like, I always feel like I tilt my head to one side and my neck's always killing me, or my posture's always been horrible. I've even gotten in the past like something that's supposed to pull your shoulders back and like retrain.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure I wore it for like maybe a few days, and it was just uncomfortable, and then I stopped.
Yep.
But
I know. They're hard to stick with. It is. And it's like anything, right? It's developing a good habit versus a bad one. You have to do it with consistency and be aware of it if you want to make that change. And it's hard to do sometimes. But, when your body starts talking to you a little bit more, your motivation level to do that increases.
Yeah. If only we could get people to start before they're feeling it.
Ah, yes. That is the greatest challenge ever. If you get an 18-year-old that buys into like mechanics and how to do things right and not try to bench press 500 pounds, like, you're going to be okay.
Yes.
But there's not a lot of those folks. So.
Any other tips related to the physical therapy side? Because you're multi-layered. You do some other stuff in life. Any other tips related to the physical therapy part?
Yeah, just like, don't wait, you know? If you're noticing something, if you're feeling something, like the sooner we can get on top of that, nip it in the bud. And this is aside from even the preventative. That'd be my whole other spiel. But if all of a sudden, like, my shoulder starts hurting and I wasn't hurting before, why is that? I think the people that have the best outcomes and the ones that stay healthy for long periods are the ones that address it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Because if a problem starts to hit you and then it compounds and compounds and compounds and you don't do anything until it's like super limiting, much harder to fix than if you're kind of catching it early on. So the little aches and pains, just don't ignore those. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to run to a PT. YouTube can be helpful for simple things, right? Just hop on, like, what is this? What can I do? A couple simple stretches, but just don't ignore that stuff. I think that can certainly matter.
Yeah, we do have so many resources at our fingertips. We really do. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. You might not want to answer this.
Okay.
Do you recommend pairing physical therapy with chiropractic care? I'm curious your thoughts on chiropractic care. I've been in and out of it my entire life, and I just want to know your thoughts.
Yeah. No, I'll give you my spiel.
Okay.
So, like anything else, I think there are good chiropractors, there are bad chiropractors, there are good PTs, there are bad PTs.
Yeah.
I think we can coexist together.
Okay.
So my philosophy has always been, like, I'm never going to be as good at manipulating a spine as a chiropractor. Okay. We learn that. We know how to manipulate. That's certainly a skill set that we have. There's specialties that you can get in it. There's certain clinicians that practice it more and are very, very good at it. But that's what chiropractors do. Right. So, I mean, I've worked very closely with a local chiropractor that we kind of exchange folks, and she sends me people that need kind of exercises and consistency there. And, you know, I send her folks that I think would benefit from getting adjusted on a routine basis. Okay. My one thing, my only, caution, I guess, for folks is there should always be corrective exercise involved in adjusting a spine, right? If it's just you adjust the spine forever, like 2-3 times a week for all of eternity, to me, that's not the best thing. Okay. There has to be some type of follow-up to it. You adjust it, it's back in alignment where it needs to be, but it's just going to slip right back out of alignment unless we're doing strengthening, unless we're doing posture strategies, unless we're working your core to keep it that way. So that would be the only thing. If it's just somebody who wants to snap, crackle, pop 3 times a week, you come forever, that kind of, I'm a little more cautious with that.
No, that's great feedback. I remember back in the day, I don't know if you know Dr. Sullivan, Winchester Chiropractic. He was here for I don't want to say this wrong, but I feel like 20, 30 years. And recently he closed the practice in Winchester and he's out in Reston and he has the practice there that I think he still works in. Yeah. But my visits there were an hour every time. I mean, I was stretching. I went through every room every time, and then I started having these experiences where I was going other places and I'd be there 4 minutes and it was what you were saying, and there was always a significant difference between the two, and it's been hard for me to find a place I could go where I thought that I was getting that same level of care. Yeah. So that I can see that and understand it. But I think about, this is such a dorky analogy, but driving down the road and I hit a pothole and I do it so many times and finally I need a front end alignment because my tires aren't wearing properly. I think about it like that. We're constantly I'm tweaking things, I'm picking up things, I feel like it's out of place.
Yeah.
I need to somehow get stuff back in alignment, or I feel like I'm doing damage.
100%.
So that's why I've always thought it was important. But I agree with something that helps you keep it there once it's there.
No doubt. And again, like for simple adjustment stuff, like we handle that frequently in PT.
Okay.
That's something that's well within our wheelhouse.
Okay.
But yeah, if it's a little bit higher level stuff and, requires some kind of more advanced technique stuff, that's oftentimes I have no problem saying, let's check in with, Dr. So-and-so, chiropractic, and let them kind of take a look there. So I think it can be a very happy marriage together.
Yeah.
It does not have to be one or the other.
Yeah, that's good to know. Thanks
Yeah.
for answering the question that I just
No, absolutely.
threw on
Absolutely.
you.
It's a great one. It's a common one. It's good.
So outside of PT, you do some other things.
Yeah.
What else do you do?
Yeah, so I've dabbled in a little bit of real estate over the last several years, which has been super fun. Always loved real estate. We have a couple of investment properties and things like that. So I got my license, 3 years ago, I think it's been now. It's been super fun.
Yeah?
Super fun to learn. Like, I went into it saying, I don't need to be Mr. Super Realtor or like anything like that. I just wanted to really learn more about it and understand the market and understand how things work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's been great. I've done not like a ton of transactions or a million things like that, or I haven't run after it like super hard.
Yeah.
Like this is going to be my full-time thing. But I've been able to help like friends and family, and I've been able to kind of, for our own stuff, kind of help with that a little bit. But really been a cool, I don't want to call it hobby, but a really fun learning experience for me.
That's a good skill set to have, and the knowledge and understanding of properties you're looking at, even for your own interest. Right?
Yeah,
what
definitely.
you should be looking for.
Yeah, and who knows? One day, like maybe I could see myself doing that on a little bit more of a routine basis, and who knows where stuff will shake out. But that's been really, really fun for me to learn kind of over these past few years.
Yeah,
so,
great.
Yeah.
And you're a dad.
I am.
That keeps you busy, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. I have 3 amazing kids. I've got a 10-year-old and 5-year-old girls, and then a 2-year-old wild little crazy boy. But they're, just the joy of my life. They're so much fun.
Yeah, it sounds fun. I can't help but ask, managing all of these things. Mm-hmm. So obviously you have one full-time job. You have, I'm not going to call it a hobby. You have real estate on the side. You have the family. What does it look like to lead effectively in the home for you?
Yeah. So, I've learned so much about being a dad in the 10 years that I've been one. Honestly, it's made me appreciate my own father so much. It's made me appreciate my father-in-law so much, and just seeing it from a whole nother side is it's a different type of leadership. So I would call any parent a leader, right? Yeah. No matter, you are a leader, whether you want to be or not, you are. And, I guess just, watching my kids grow in different phases of life too, I've learned so much. And getting to see them, like, we always talk about, you feel like you give your kids all the worst parts of you sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, at the same time, seeing maybe some of the good stuff that comes out too. And when that shines to the surface, it's like the greatest thing ever. Like, it's just such a fun win when you get those moments. So yeah, like, I would equate it even in the workplaces. You feel like you invest in somebody, and you're just like, are you getting it? Are you getting it? I'm not seeing the result. And then you get that moment of like, oh my gosh, they just thrived and succeeded in that scenario. And like, to me, there's not much of a better feeling than that. So
I just said yesterday, so I went to Hanley graduation.
Yeah.
One of the students that I had in my 5th grade class, so 7 years ago, just really cared for him and believed in him from day one and tried to be there to support him. He had a lot going on, and went to graduation, and it was amazing to see him and see how, he's grown and he's thriving and he's going to school on a football scholarship.
Fun.
Very cool. But all these kids running up, like, to see me, cutest thing. One kid ran up and he was like, "Miss Sierra Collins, it can't be. You taught me 5th grade math and you left because of Lyme disease, and I wondered if you were okay. But I found your Facebook profile for your podcast, and I've been listening to it."
Oh
and
my gosh, you're
away,
like, just
right?
melt
The
me.
cutest, the
Yes.
cutest. But I said last night, I do miss that because I feel like I see greater impact and more growth in children than sometimes you can see in an adult, because it's
Yeah.
almost like there's a greater change happening. It's at a faster rate. They're learning really quickly.
Yeah.
They're developing so much at the same time, but sometimes it
Sure.
takes a lot longer. You have to invest in an adult a lot longer to see some of those changes.
What a great point. What a great point. Yeah. No, you do. I mean, anything with kids, right? It's just happening fast. Like, they're
Yes.
growing they grow 4 inches in a summer, and you're like, who are you? You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, the same thing is that just, right, it happens quicker. That's a great observation.
Yeah. Well, it tells me, I have to keep my patience and understand that adults really are a lot harder to change and to shape.
Yeah.
It's the habits that they've built that they have trouble, unlearning.
Absolutely.
And just to see it through, because that's possible too. And there are lots of adult success stories. And I know you see a lot of adult success stories, I'm sure. But just the distinction between the two was interesting.
Yeah.
I was reflecting on last night.
That's really neat.
That made me think of that.
I love that. I love that.
Well, I have a couple of segments that I
Sure.
want to do with you.
Yeah.
So we started doing Leadership in the Wild.
Yeah.
I really just want to spotlight people that we're seeing in action in the community or beyond that you see leading effectively, and what is it that they're doing. So
Yeah.
maybe it will give other listeners ideas of things that they could do to be more impactful. So did you have anybody in mind?
Yeah, so this one is, I hope it's okay I take this approach on it, but
Yeah.
my daughter,
Okay.
so my 10-year-old daughter, she's very shy, just by nature, and she oftentimes just like kind of wants to put herself down, and this doesn't always have the utmost confidence and things of that nature. So we're constantly trying to build her up, right? Like all the time, like, "Brie, you're doing great, you're awesome, you're thriving," and she's just really hard on herself.
Okay.
But we're just always like pouring into her. And actually, just this past weekend, we were on this trip with family, and she some of her cousins are a little bit more kind of dominant type A personalities, and kind of more of the more outspoken, call them leaders in the group and things like that. But she had this moment where she was out on this boat in this lake, and everybody was kind of like, should we jump in? Should we not? The lake was cold. It wasn't 100% sure how deep it was, that kind of thing. It was like one of those. And usually the one cousin that would just jump in and do it was like really hesitant and scared. And Bria decided, like, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to do it. So she just jumps in. No big deal, whatever. And it was this moment, it just struck me of like, that's you leading by example. And we had this great conversation after that was like, a leader doesn't always have to be the loudest person in the room, right? It doesn't always have to be the most dominant personality.
Agreed.
Like, you can be a lead by example servant leader and be as impactful, if not more impactful, than somebody who's this dynamic, amazing speaker. So, like, I really just wanted to speak and pour into it, and I did. Like, you are a leader. That was a leadership moment, and you did that so well. And I was just so proud of her, in that moment that, like, she stepped up and did that. And that was just such a fun thing for me to see. And I'm sure, there's probably people out there that can relate to things of that nature, to where, like, you can be a highly effective leader by showing and not just always doing. And I love that. And I really kind of in my own leadership just really relate to that. So.
What a great example. It really solidifies what people ask me all the time when I do DISC assessments, and they're high S, which means, S stands for steadiness. So they're usually calm, cool, and collected. They kind of sit behind the scenes. They're loyal. They're willing to follow anyone and support them, right? But they question, I'm a little more introverted. I'm not super outgoing. Can I still lead effectively? And you just gave a perfect example of how you can still do that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So mine, I was thinking about a client that I saw this week. I did a presentation about multi-generational differences and kind of bridging some gaps and breaking through some of the stereotypes. And there were some folks in the group that were really resistant to finding anything positive about millennials. I'm going to be completely honest. They really resistant.
Yeah.
Couldn't convince them for anything. But the oldest gentleman in the room, last year, he and I were working together, and we had set a goal for him to really start connecting more with some of the younger folks in the organization because he was having a lot of trouble with it. He worked really hard at it, and he actually stepped in and shared with the individuals that were so resistant about the impact that understanding the strengths and the backgrounds of each of these individuals and understanding them as individual people, right? How that had an impact on the relationship, and seeing that everyone brings value to the table, and maybe they don't function the way that you do, but they have something that they can teach you, and you can be learning from them. And he just great. Really stepped in and said, I want to show you the way, and I hope you'll listen to me because this does work. And he said to me, I'm working on him. But he just kind of stepped up, and it was something he had kind of the same issue with just a year ago and had that mindset, and he's overcome it, and now he's sharing it with someone else that was resistant. And I just loved seeing that.
I love that, because that shows like such humility to me, that you can kind of just sort of, scratch your own ego and just say, hey, I'm going to learn about you. It doesn't have to be my way or the highway. It's like, I want to grow from you. That shows everything to me. Yeah. That's cool.
I thought it was too. Okay, so now I want to switch over to so I know I gave you a little slip of paper too, so if you need to reread it. So Leadership Unscripted, I'm going to share this scenario that was sent in by a listener. And just a reminder to our listeners, they can be submitting anonymously, so we can be supporting with whatever situations they find themselves in. But I'll read it here. It says, as a new leader who's still building confidence, how do you effectively build trust and rapport with your team, especially when you're second-guessing yourself or stepping into a team with strong personalities? How do you project credibility while still being authentic about where you're growing? Which is such a great question, and I know a lot of people experience this, but would you like to try and answer that? What are your thoughts?
No. So it's interesting, like in my new role with this company, CAO, there's a lot of strong personality folks within our team, which is great. And I think, that's cool. That's not me at all. So stepping into that, I mean, I can totally see it, that can be difficult. It can be intimidating at times, so that sort of thing too. But gosh, to me, it's just so much of like, how do you get to know a person before it's even like about work? Tell me about your kids. Tell me about your life. What do you like to do? Like what's fun? Like, beyond anything work, I just feel like there's so much value in learning something about someone that you can connect on. And you can probably find some connect point with almost anybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that starting there is everything. Like, you got to build that rapport in that way before you even hop into a let's talk about work, that kind of thing. But at the same time, like, being confident and understanding that you have value and what that value is, and like showing that to people. And it doesn't have to be like, hey, we're going to change every single thing and it's got to be this way, but like proving to somebody by your actions that you know what you're doing, or you know what you're talking about, or being the one to mop the floor ahead of time, you know, to say, I'm going to do something, and that maybe I'm at this level, but I'm going to, you know, be willing to stoop down at this level and show you that I'm a part of this team and I'm willing to hop in and work. Like in our world, I don't know, I just always use example, like we always have to, you know, we wipe down tables after everybody uses a table, or a patient uses a table at work. And I just always said to myself, like, I'm never going to be the person that doesn't wipe down the table, even if that's like, you know, a tech's job or a support staff's job. Like, I'm never going to be too big to go in there and do that task. And I feel like that shows others that, like, okay, you're not this high and mighty anything, like you're willing to get in there and do the dirty work too. So
it makes me think, do you know Seth Thatcher? He was Frederick County Commissioner of the Revenue. He recently moved, and he's down toward Ocean City, Maryland right now, and he just took on a summer job. I'm sorry. He's working at Frontier Town. I'm just picturing him in his little cowboy hat. He's checking campers in to this like amusement park resort. It is such a shift. And he sent me a message yesterday, and he was like, you know, like, I know I have a skill set and I could be using it differently, but he was like, I equated it to like, I like greeting people. I could be a Walmart greeter. I could stand there and just, you know, make people feel good and welcome them when they come in. He was like, that's kind of like what this is, but I like it. And I thought that was so cool that, you know, that's what he was doing, and he's okay with, you know, checking folks in at an amusement park. So
love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
So when I was thinking about the question, a lot of overlap with what you said, honestly. I think really starting to refer to it as the collective we as a team, not an I versus you kind of thing, just focusing on the we. Maybe just owning what you do know, kind of like you said, knowing your value, own what you do know, but also remain curious and asking questions, and not getting defensive if someone's questioning you, but ask questions. Why might they be reactive? You know, what could be causing this? Those were the things that immediately came to mind, but you're not going to do anything better than just trying to connect with another human and finding something in common with them. So I love that you brought that up.
I love the be curious. That's fantastic. Because
I found a habit when I do listen back to episodes, which is so annoying. I always start sentences with, I'm curious. It's kind of annoying, but I really do like to be curious and always asking questions and trying to learn more about people and, you know, what causes their behaviors. And so I think it does make a difference to be willing to learn more.
Yeah. We were just talking about this the other day, Kelly and I, like the friends that ask questions and want to be engaged and know what's going on in your life, like those are the people I want to be around. Like, you're genuinely interested in what's happening to me, and within a conversation versus just telling me about you. Like, you know, who doesn't like to kind of talk about themselves if you engage them in that way? Like, so anyways, that just made me think of that.
That's full circle, because you're talking about, okay, someone's out with an injury. They want to know that when I'm not there, people are still thinking about me.
Yes.
It does show you who really cares. If something's happening in your life and you have to step away, right? I know it happened when I was on bed rest twice with my Lyme disease. Like, who actually checked on me? You think you have these relationships with people and you hear from them every day, but if you're not top of mind, then suddenly you don't hear from them. So I don't think that's off topic at all. It fits with what we were talking about earlier. All right, last piece, our
Yeah.
branching out challenge. So I'm curious. See,
There it is.
I was doing
Nice.
it. I'm curious. What would you like to challenge our listeners to do based on what they heard today?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, if I were to speak to an employer or somebody in a management position or something like that, like just, consider the value of preventative stuff. And I think it can really apply to so many different industries. Like often I think about it in the context of, again, like the factory based stuff and how we can do that. But what else can we do to get ahead of this stuff? I just think it is where things need to go in healthcare. It's where we can make the most difference in healthcare and in PT in my world. But like, be curious about what it could do for you and your employees, and what that looks like. Again, and that's probably having a conversation and tailoring it to your specific needs. But how can you get ahead of potentially preventing a big not good scenario?
Yeah, I think that's a great challenge. So that leads into, how can people find you if they're interested in hearing more about the care that you provide, or want you to come in and look at creating a custom plan? Where can people find you?
Yeah. So probably the easiest method for me is email. I'm very responsive to email. I'll be happy to connect or answer in any way through that. My email is just jbotta@cfaortho.com. The organization I work for, I don't even know if I said that. I work for the...
I was like, are you keeping it a secret?
No, gosh, I'm so sad to say. The people are going to be mad at me for this. So I work for the Centers for Orthopedic... oh boy, I'm going to say it right. CAO. We just kind of changed names not long ago. CAO, Centers for Advanced Orthopedics. Okay. And we are the Winchester Orthopedic Associates Division. Okay. So most people locally would know Winchester Orthopedic Associates. They're off of Amherst. So yes, that is our organization. Yes. So you can certainly Google us too and find our website and look on the industrial page, and it'll have a little bit more about me and some of that stuff too. But yeah, email me. I'm great with email.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm glad you finally reveled that. That was the big reveal everybody's been waiting for.
That's so terrible. I'm sorry. Well, it was not intentional.
No, I've had people on before where for some reason or another, they didn't want to exactly say where they worked. Maybe it was out of fear of saying something and it coming back on them. I'm not sure, but I was going to respect it.
Gosh, yeah, I'm glad that came up. That's good. Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your knowledge. You're always welcome back. It's been a pleasure, but thank you for coming on. I'm sure people found a lot of value in this.
Well, good. Well, thank you. Thank you again for having me. This was great. This was super fun. So.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in for another episode. Hopefully you did find value in that and maybe can share it with someone in your network that you feel would enjoy the episode as well. And even if you aren't the decision maker in an organization, you could certainly bring this information to a leader in the organization that you think needs to hear it. I'm sure that everybody could benefit from preventative care. I swear both are words, by the way. And I want to, as always, share that our episodes are released every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to automatically get those reminders, be sure to subscribe or follow. We're on all the different podcast platforms. And I know we're going to be pushing out a lot of video content this season as well. So you can check us out on YouTube and on all the socials. So thanks again for joining us. If you are interested in podcast sponsorship, we are rolling out those packages this year. I'm pretty excited about that. So be sure to reach out at info@branchingoutpodcast.com, where you can also submit your questions or scenarios that you would like to hear us talk about on air. So thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep branching out.